Welcome back to the channel, everyone. My name is Billy the Jaegers, and today we're going to be talking about something actually really brilliant about 139, specifically 139, that people do not give enough credit for. Now, we all know 139 is probably the worst chapter in Attack on Titan, which the reason I'm saying that is because Attack on Titan is such high quality that this chapter really falls short of the usual quality that we have experienced as an audience. Nonetheless, there's been plenty of criticism given to the chapter, but this is not going to be an apologist video. So if you disagree with me, my Discord's going to be in the description. Go fight me over there. But this is not going to be an apologist video. I'll be presenting no arguments or counter arguments for any of this. I'll simply be stating what I believe to be a very nice move on Isayama's part. If you disagree, you can talk to me. But now, let's get into it. So, the reason why I like 139 so much is because it does an incredibly well balancing act. Now, what do I mean by that? Now, for a story, what we need is direction. The story needs direction, right? So, you have to know why am I going to be watching the next episode? That's pretty much the question. Why should I watch the next episode? Give you an example. On the very first episode, the very first chapter, not the second episode, not the third episode, but the very first episode, the very first chapter, we got, well, first of all, the title of the episode / chapter was a mysterious title that was not solved in the first chapter, episode, or even season. It wasn't until 122 that we got sort of an answer, then in 139 we got the actual full answer. But, so this number one was the title. That gave you a bit of direction, right? A mystery. Not entirely, but still sort of a subtle nudge, like, hey, this title means something. It's there, and you need to stick around and figure out what it is. The second thing was the key. The basement key. That was shown in the very first episode. Why? To get you to say, I want to watch what happens next. And I know you're saying, well, Beluga, there was a bunch of stuff happened in the first episode. The Titans came in, Aaron's mom died. There's a lot of stuff that happened that was made you want to watch the next episode. But no, that wasn't really it. I mean, it's sort of like subdirection. The real direction, the real reason why you watched Attack on Titan was to figure out what is in that basement. So when Grisha showed that key, it gave the audience a clue. It's just, it gave the audience direction. It made them say, you're watching because you want to know what is in this basement. The basement got brought up time and time again. Throughout all the seasons, it got brought up. Basement. You were wondering, what is in that freaking basement? We need to see the basement, right? So that's direction. That's very powerful direction. On top of all the subplots and mysteries that I'm sure most of you are probably thinking, well, I watched the next episode to figure out this, episode to figure out that, right? Because we had Aaron turned to a Titan, then Annie, then Reiner and Barathol, and then the Titans came into the walls, but the walls weren't broken. There's all this stuff. So we need to know why. The real thing, from the beginning, was the basement. That is why Return to Shiganshina is usually called the best arc, because it had the most build-up. All the build-up from episode 1, him flashing that key, all that was just to get to that basement. So that's really good for the audience to have direction and have a long-term goal. Second thing, which is not needed, but is very nice, and that is subversion of expectations, or in layman's terms, plot twist. Now, Death Note had direction, right? Death Note, it was a cat and mouse game between the detectives and Light, right? Or Kira. And so we had direction. Kira wanted to overcome Light, and Light in turn wanted to overcome Kira. Whoever got rid of the other one would win the game. Now, I know technically L died, and honestly, that is one of the reasons why that after L dies, the show goes off. But L technically died, but it's still the police and detectives. Once the detectives got out of his back, then the story would end. Right? So the audience can sort of see what the ending is. And that's actually a good thing, right? To have an idea what the ending is. Because back in the day, I thought, okay, no, Attack on Titan's going to end. They're going to reach the ocean, they're all going to be happy, and then the show's going to wrap up, right? That's why I thought it would end. Of course, Isayama does what Isayama does. And he subverts expectations and something else happens. Now, while subversion of expectations is not necessary to make a good story, it is a very good thing to have, to the audience be surprised and to have the ending not be predictable. And the 139 did that. Now, this is why I started my YouTube channel later, much after I finished the story. Because when I was watching it, I thought, okay, there's no more anything. Everything's been laid out. We now know how this is going to end. Either Eren is going to die or the Atlantis is going to die. That's it. And there'll be some, some wrap up later on, but that's how it's going to go. Because this is the last few chapters. We already know it. Everything's already set out for us, right? I think after 133, it was pretty clear, but it was clear beforehand that Eren was going to do the rumbling. I'd say around 123. 123, it was really, everything's been solved. There's no more mysteries, no more plot twists. We're just moving forward. We're just going forward. We're just going to see who wins out in the end, right? Which is sort of a predictable ending, which again is fine, because again, in Death Note, it's the same thing. Everyone, I think Death Note ending was decent, was pretty decent, but it was still very predictable, right? Like, Light got caught, okay? We all knew that. Now, I'm not saying it's completely predictable. Don't hear me say it's completely predictable. I'm saying the audience had a framework of what's going to happen. The audience sort of knew where the show was going. That makes sense, right? So that's what I'm trying to say. But then it's not what happened with Attack on Titan. Attack on Titan pulled out 3 major plot twists that were set up beforehand that came to fruition in 139. And that is an incredibly hard thing to do, to string along to fool your audience for that long, for 138 chapters. String them along for that long, for 3 major plot twists is incredible. Now, what are these 3 plot twists I'm going to be asking? Now, I'm going to order these from most predictable to least predictable. Now, number 1, first and foremost, the one that was predictable, and some of you even picked it up on beforehand, which is that Eren planned to be stopped. No, this is not the Lelouch ending, and I will do a video about that later, but this is definitely not the Lelouch ending. But he did plan to be stopped. Or maybe not plan, but he knew he was going to be stopped. I think that's more perfect. He knew he was going to be stopped. And he had a pretty good idea that he was going to die, right? And so, how do we know this, right? Well, number 1, right? I think the biggest example we can bring is that he, when the moment he did the rumbling, instead of saying, and again, guys, this is why it's good to watch the sub and not the dub, because the dub messes it up, right? But the sub, I think I got this right. The sub says he undid all Titan hardening. That's what he did. He undid all the Titan hardening. So that explains why Annie got released, right? Because Annie was she was in her crystal, which means the Titan hardening. So once Eren announced the rumbling and used the Founder's power, her crystal broke. Now, why would he go out of his way to break Annie's crystal? Now, around this time, people were saying, "Oh, it's because the Founder's power is imprecise." That makes sense. He's a beginner. Founder's power is imprecise. Me personally, I was thinking, well, he just said, "Oh, all the Titan hardening is being undone," and he just accidentally unhardened Annie. It's very possible because Annie's been gone for such a long time, and so hardening he's thinking about those walls. So it's possible, right? There's all pretty good answers. I mean, it wouldn't really hold up in a debate per se, but it's pretty good answer. Like, okay, he undid the Titan hardening, which we then learn. Oh, okay, that makes sense. It was not only the battle for Earth, but beforehand, all the pieces, all the battles he took part in beforehand. I mean, the Jaegers gave them a really big fight, and so they needed Annie for that as well. This also explains why he never took away their freedom, because in 133 he explains why his friends have freedom, but he never explains why Annie, Reiner, Peak, and Gabby have their freedom. Now you may be saying, well, Annie and Reiner were his friends. I'm with you. He probably has good feelings towards him now. But Peak and Gabby, the only time he's ever talked to Peak is when she didn't point a gun at him and then betrayed him afterward. And Gabby, Gabby's Gabby. So I was thinking, okay, well, maybe Gabby's not a high priority to you, but why is Peak? Peak should at least be incapacitated. Not even have her, not have her Titan powers. And at most, she should be incapacitated or unconscious. Why is she allowed to participate? And why is she allowed to have her Titan powers? And we know her. She's screaming at Battle Heaven Earth. She's screaming at Eren. She's yelling at her stage. She has some dynamite. So it's like, okay, why are you letting her live, right? And we realize later, oh, that's why, right? Another thing, which is the Warhammer Titan. Back when I was reading, I was like, well, Eren, this is very simple for Eren, because I stopped reading at 134. And then I read 135 to 139 months later. So I had a lot of time to think about this. And I thought, well, this is very simple for Eren. Because, I just got done reading 134. I thought, this is very simple for Eren. He can not sacrifice his principles at all. All he has to do, bury himself in the war with Warhammer Titan in the middle of Parody or wherever in the world, to be honest. And then he doesn't have to affect his friend's freedom, and he can't get killed because he has the Warhammer Titan, and he could be anywhere at any elevation. And so I thought, well, Eren can just do this, that. And I thought, well, he didn't do this because he didn't think about it. I mean, he's not that smart. Oh, he's pumped with adrenaline. He's stressed out. I mean, what? He didn't think about it, you know. Just like plausible reasons, but very weak reasons nonetheless. And it turns out the reason why he didn't use the Warhammer Titan is because the future wouldn't have happened. Right. So, and again, this is quite predictable. Most people saw, you know, read the tea leaves and said, okay, you know, this is actually okay. He looks like he's playing the game stopped. And of course, the biggest thing, which is an extremely on the nose, the dialogue is when Reiner says that Eren plans to get stopped. When I read that, I thought, Eren might actually end up dying. But unlike most people, I didn't get pissed off or angry or disappointed. Even though I wanted Eren to not to die, I wanted him to complete the rumbling. I thought, I'll leave this in Isayama's hands. He's never failed before, and he won't fail us again. And he really didn't. So you just have to keep an open mind when you're reading this kind of stuff, and don't let your own personal opinion cloud your judgment. Because again, I felt the same way you did. I was like, oh man, I want Eren to live. No, he can't die. But I stuck with the story, and I trusted Isayama, and it worked out for me. So that was the most obvious thing, right? Plot twist, he planned to get stopped, kind of, or not planned, but he knew he was going to get stopped and tried to set up the pieces so that he would get stopped in the future he saw. So that's number one. Number two, Mikasa being the main character. And this was a massive plot twist, right? That Mikasa is actually a chosen one. And yeah, maybe the execution was a little bit bad. I mean, this was sandwiched between a couple other crazy plot twists, one of them being Eren killed his own mom, supposedly, or something like that. So it was very wild and breakneck for the audience to experience all these things. But nonetheless, it was still a plot twist, and it was one that was planned since episode 1. Now we fully understand the meaning of the phrase, to you 2,000 years from now. Now, when I read from you 2,000 years ago, I thought, oh, we have the full pieces. And then I read the chapter, and I still couldn't fully ascertain. It's like, was it from Eren to Ymir? Yes, that kind of makes sense, but I couldn't fully ascertain the meaning of what this meant, right? And it's fine, because this happens a lot in Attack on Titan. One of them was being Ymir. Ymir's conversations towards the end of the Clash of Titans arc make absolutely no sense. I remember her story saying, there won't be a future outside the walls because they're trying to eat me. Right, she said that. And so we were like, what do you mean, Ymir? That's her future outside the walls. What are you talking about? So we were all extremely confused. But you know what? It's important not to try to fit a square peg into a round hole. So we just said, well, I'll take care of that later. I guess I'll get explained later, right? Same thing with the Al. Al said, if you want to say Mikasa an Armin. We were like, how do you know what Mikasa an Armin? That doesn't make any sense. But we thought, you know what? We'll just let Isayama handle and explain it. And he did. And then this thing, I thought we had the full answer now, 122. We didn't, but it's fine because I actually got explained at 139. Now we fully know to you, Ymir, 2,000 years from now. Then from Mikasa to you 2,000 years ago. So this is about Mikasa and Ymir's relationship. So this, number one, proves that from chapter 1, it was supposed to be Mikasa and Ymir. Otherwise, the title makes no sense. Number 2, Mikasa gets a headache in episode 1, and she's the only character that gets headaches, and constantly, all the time, throughout the entire series, she's always getting headaches. And now we understand why, right? And so Eren gave an explanation, but it was so obviously false. That's why I love that scene, because both of the claims he made were so extremely falsifiable in that very moment that you knew there was something else deeper than that. Because we never really see Levi get headaches at all. But we always see Mikasa getting these headaches. And this also explained why Titans are still around, and it's like, oh, okay, this makes sense, that's why Titans are still around. This also explains how Eren was able to suddenly defy royal blood and somehow able to convince her to do the rumbling, right? So all these things that explain it, and it was obviously set up from the beginning that Mikasa was supposed to be Ymir's savior, so to speak. And it was a wild plot twist, but it made sense. And yeah, Eren did his face for saying only Ymir knows, but it should have been fairly obvious to you. Now for the third thing, the third plot hole, plot twist, that was so extremely out of left field. There are people saying that this was never set up. It was just thrown in there, which obviously it wasn't. And this is a fact that Eren loves Mikasa. Now, I was not an Eren Mikasa shipper. Eren Mikasa shippers saw this coming. I did not see it coming. I had no clue. I didn't think Eren loved Mikasa at all. And so when this came, I was surprised. Like, oh wait, you actually do love Mikasa. Interesting. Now, this was set up, of course, especially in the anime. And it's funny we didn't see it, but when he first sees Mikasa, he is blushing around her, which is obviously a sign for romance. We see this with Annie and Armin. We see this with Falco and Gabby. We see this all the time where they blush around each other, and so that means that it's supposed to be a cue that they love each other. Basically, he also looks at her in the train scene. She's the biggest memory when he goes into the paths. He said, "Oh, wrap a scarf around you." And in the anime specifically, they emphasize. Now, I don't like to get into arguments about facial expressions. We can talk about facial expressions all day. If you're one of those guys who believe that Eren looks sad or sentimental when he's makes of past facial expressions, good for you. I believe the same thing. But if you don't believe it, I can't prove that to you. It's a facial expression. But they do emphasize this in the anime where they're going through the memories, and the music stops, and Mikasa's voice comes out, and it echoes. And it's an extremely important moment because it is holding off everything. It stops music, stops the dialogue, stops everything. And it's just Mikasa's small child voice saying it's warm, and it echoes. It's done very purposely to say, this is important. Pay attention to this. And so, yeah, obviously. And of course, it's not really a setup, but Eren later, 139, said that he risked everyone was a parody, except for Mikasa, because Mikasa's the most important person to him. And so, this was well thought out plot twist. It was obvious from the start. If you look back, now with retrospect, looking back, you'd say, oh, in fact, there is some loving moments between the two of these people. Now, why it was set up like that, why it was so subtle, that's a video for another day. Believe me, there is a reason why it's set up like that. It's a good reason why. The reason why I'm making this video is to simply explain to you the brilliance of 139. There is brilliance in 139. The fact that we were able to carry the audience with direction, right? Ever since the rumbling arc started, which we thought all questions were settled. I mean, not all of them, but the majority of the questions were settled. It's like, okay, it's the Alliance versus Eren. It's the Alliance versus Eren. It's the Alliance versus Eren. That's it. And we were flipping through the pages. We were watching the next episode to see what's going to happen with the rumbling. To have those, and to have the audience have a surprising, unpredictable ending is what I appreciate so much. Because I was expecting, I'm going to say it was disappointing in Death Note, but I was expecting more from it. And it was good. It was decent. Besides the massive plot hole. But it was pretty good. Because I was like, okay, I know it's going to happen. It's going to be light or it's going to be L. But I've seen so much plot twists. This author is so smart. There has to be something. There has to be another, there has to be a third option. All right, there has to be a third ending on that scene. And it was, Alex ended up getting caught and whatever. It was pretty decent, but I wanted to be surprised. I wanted to have my last thing be surprised. I didn't want to be able to predict what's going to happen. And so I did that, right? He made it so that Eren actually knew he was going to get stopped. He made it so that Mikasa was actually the main character this entire time. Who would have known? And he made it so that Eren loved Mikasa, which wasn't a plot twist to some, certainly a plot twist to me. And so he had all these three things out of nowhere, surprises, massive surprises. And no, when you thought I said three plot twists, you said, well, it was more than three plot twists in 139. I know, but there's three giant plot twists in 139. And the last one I'll give you is what we're probably all thinking right now, a bonus plot twist, which is Eren killing his own mom. Now that works thematically for so many reasons, but of course the main thing is that it makes Eren the antagonist. Yes, Eren is the antagonist and the protagonist. He's a villain in the story, and he's a hero to the aliens and the Jaegerist. That's it. And I know what the definition of a protagonist means, and I'm telling you, Eren is the protagonist and the antagonist throughout the story. And so that was another, I didn't put in this break, I think these are more important, but that is a massive plot twist, something we were not expecting. It's a third ending, so to speak, in the last chapter. So that is an incredible balancing act to do, to have that much direction without giving that much information. And so it's delivered on that, and I'm actually pretty happy. I'm actually very, very happy because I knew that other Death Note guy, he's sort of whack. Isayama's got the stuff, and Isayama came through a bit too much with the plot twist in 139, but he came through nonetheless, and I'm pretty happy about it. I hope you learned something new. Hope you liked the video. Make sure to stick around, subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video.